When you're doing a stage 3 job, you will always have to have extra cash laying around because there's always the what if, extra parts that you need, stuff that you find broken. Always the case, especially with these cars getting older and older. Stuff's broken, stuff needs to be replaced. It's not just slap on turbos and we're ready to go. I would always have an extra $1,000 to $1,500 on top of your project budget. Little things add up very, very fast. We got things like, things you don't have to do, but it helps. OEM ties. We got some new sensors. This is the low temp switch. It'll turn on your fans sooner, and the secondary water pump. A lot of times your secondary water pump starts leaking really bad. It's because the pump never runs and everything dries out. This lower temp switch on there, every time you run your car and turn it off, the pump will turn on, the secondary water pump will turn on, as well as the front fans, and that'll help extend the life of your pump. Coolant temp switch, always replace that when you're doing these. It's cheap, 20 bucks. Let's see what else we got here. New oil cap, miscellaneous clips, hoses. We're going to do spark plugs. I'm not sure what that is. Empty bag. We also got so if you look, I had to have the flywheel resurfaced. It was in really bad shape. If you ever do change the clutch out, you usually always want to get the flywheel resurfaced. But when you do that, you're going to have to get new flywheel bolts. And I also get new pressure plate bolts. Flywheel bolts. His gas cap was broken, I noticed that, so he ordered a new one. Some brackets for the ambient air temp sensor. That's what this is. So his ambient air temp sensor, the one out in front, was missing. So was the bracket to hold it. Everything was gone, so we're gonna fix that. One thing he decided to do, some oil bolts. One thing he decided to do, which I mentioned, was his belly pan was gone, as well with all the hardware, so he opted to order all the parts, bolts, everything to install the belly pan. He was also missing this cross member underneath, so he ordered that. His coolant reservoir was cracked, ordered a new one. Heat shields. I noticed his serpentine belt tensioner was making a lot of noise, so we ordered a new one of those. Broken bracket. He was missing the oil coolers, but he opted to go with an aftermarket version as he was having a hard time finding OEM. Another coolant hose. That's just an aftermarket cap. Same with that. Secondary water pump with the gaskets. So when you do the secondary water pump, also order intake manifold gaskets. Some people like to do it from, you reach underneath there and do it without taking the intake manifold off. Again, I prefer not to take shortcuts, and I like to make sure everything's done correctly, torqued down, everything's tied in correctly, not just shoved in there. Other things he needed: power steering fluid, tranny fluid. We've talked about this before in my transmission and diff flush video. Coolant. Another thing he decided to order was a new water hose, so that's here as well. He also got a new intake setup. When you start doing this stuff adds up pretty fast. So just keep that in mind when you budget for doing a stage 3 turbo job, that there's always going to be extras that you add in there, and it does add up, and I'm just going to keep saying that. Don't expect to say, oh, I'm going to do this for $4,000, and it's not going to happen unless your car's in great shape and you kept up on the maintenance. Otherwise, you're going to end up having to do all this stuff and add-ons. The only thing he didn't have to do was the timing belt. I would have also highly suggested doing the timing belt at this stage if everything's apart, but he did this a couple weeks before the car came to me. I think he used my timing belt do-it-yourself video, which is kind of neat. It's nice to see that somebody else was able to do, and then it comes to me and everything looks great.